Education of the School District of New Berlin is called to order. Please call the roll.
Ms. Crosby.
Here.
Mr. Helmer. Mr. Kurth. Ms. Manley. Ms. Schulz. Ms. Unger. Ms. Wondercheck.
And Ms. Schulz did let me know that she is out of town tonight, so she will not be making the meeting. The next item on the agenda is closed session. I would entertain a motion to adjourn to closed session.
Mr. President, I move to adjourn into closed session pursuant to Section 19.85, 1 C, E, and F of the Wisconsin statutes to consider A, the approval of closed session minutes of August 12th, B, employment, performance, and compensation matters pertaining to staff, C, negotiation strategies.
So I have a motion by Mr. Kurth and a second by Ms. Manley. Please call the roll.
Mr. Kurth.
Yes.
Ms. Manley. Yes. Ms. Crosby.
Yes.
Mr. Helmer. Yes. Ms. Unger. Yes. Ms. Wondercheck.
We are moving into closed session and we'll return to open session around 7 p.m. All right. It is now 7:10, and we're returning from closed session into open session. In recognition of the serious and important nature here of our efforts here, we will join in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Please rise. And now for those who wish to prepare for the meeting, we will have a moment of silence. This is a public meeting of the Board of Education. Prior to this meeting, notice was given to the public last Friday by posting the agenda at each district school, the district office, and the city library. The agenda was also posted on the district website. A copy of the agenda was forwarded to the Journal-Sentinel, the Waukesha Freeman, and the Waukesha Now, all of which have filed requests for all public notices. Next item on the agenda is the privilege of the floor. I'm just going to, Bill, you know the kind of the 3 minutes, all of that, so Bill Adams.
I feel like the lonely warrior here.
Trust me, you're not
But my intent is to speak to you directly. When my wife and I moved to New Berlin some 21 years ago, your predecessors were engaged in a crisis, a financial crisis, far worse than anything we are experiencing today. At that time, there were 4 public grade schools within the district: Cleveland Heights, Calhoun, New Berlin Center, and Prospect Hill. One of those schools, Calhoun, had experienced a boiler explosion that could have killed people had it happened during school time. Together, those 4 schools plus West had amassed what today would be approximately $40 million worth of deferred maintenance. Their backs were against the wall. Politically, a referendum was not an option. They had to do something. So what did they do? They marshaled the community support, and first, they built Poplar Creek and folded Calhoun and Cleveland Heights into it. Then they built Ronald Reagan, and they folded the other 2 schools into it. They brought this building up to code, and they made certain enhancements to it that we enjoy today. Look around you. This is just a small piece of what they accomplished on their watch. That's their legacy. The question is, what will yours be when this term is over? I have the privilege of being one of 16 members of the Budget Balancing Task Force. Their mission, our mission, is to find ways to find revenue enhancements or cost savings that will enable us to balance the budget, all of us to balance the budget, until debt relief hits in a number of years. Within the scope of that mission, 2 things are off the table. The first of which is a referendum. The second of which is closure of Orchard Lane and consolidation of West and Ike. Most of the members on that task force are a lot smarter than I am. And I have absolutely no doubts of that team's ability to accomplish the mission given. There are ample opportunities for revenue enhancement and for cost savings. That's the easy part. The difficult part is trying to determine and gain a consensus on which of all of those options will achieve the intended purpose, hopefully resulting in strengthening the overall institution and not weakening it any more than is absolutely necessary. It just takes a little bit of time. So your predecessors succeeded for 2 reasons. The most important of which is they had community support. Now, if you go forward with the plan possible plan of closing Orchard Lane and consolidating the high school, you will not have the requisite community support, in my opinion. I've found very little sentiment in favor, and I don't even think any of you are really in favor of it. The only other way of accomplishing it is to have your backs against the wall and convince yourselves and the public that you have no choice. But the fact is, there are lots of choices, far less drastic. It's just a matter of all of us gathering together and finding out which will work the best. If you go forward without that support and without convincing everyone that your backs are against the wall and you have no choice, you will create a firestorm of opposition in this community that potentially would tear the community apart. You will create a situation that I would only equate to Glen Park times 10. And for those of you who weren't there at that time, I suggest you ask my dear friend Amy what that was. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemies, and certainly I wouldn't wish it on my friends, and I consider all of you my friends. Obviously, the people are coming in to tell us about the implications of those actions. We obviously need to listen to them respectfully and gather whatever information they have. But once that's done, we should send them out the door and take them out of our lives and say, we don't need you. That solution will not work for New Berlin. We have a better way, and working together, I'm sure we'll find it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the President's message. I just have a brief message. So as a board, last month we had a workshop in which we were developing goals that we would like to work on this year as a board. So one of our goals was to understand the student experience. And so one way we're going to work towards that goal this year is to rotate our meetings at the school buildings. And so between the district schools. So we'll be looking at holding, and we're getting that schedule set so that we can properly notice the community as well as the schools, but we're going to be looking at rotating and hitting each school building at least once this year so that we can talk to students, staff, parents, community at each of the elementary and secondary schools. And as soon as we finalize those dates, we'll get those out to the community. Next item on the agenda is the administrative team report.
So I'll keep it brief, and I'd be remiss not to talk about what's imminent, and that is the start of the school year. Last week, Monday, we welcomed our new employees and our new staff to the School District of New Berlin. Today, we welcomed all staff at all of our buildings, and tomorrow we will have our official district kickoff at 8 a.m. and while our teachers continue to learn and collaborate. So I will tell you that from personal experience as the father of a sophomore and a junior, that maybe not everybody shares in that sentiment of excitement for another new school year. But nonetheless, we are very well prepared coming in. There's been a lot of work that's been done over the summer, not only heavy lifting done by the board, with Patrick, with Kelly. We've done a lot of heavy lifting, and we can, sometimes we forget that some of the things that we do in anticipation of a new school year is quite critical. And again, at the end of the day, why is it that we're here? And I know that our conversations are budget laden, but our focus is about our students, and like Amy just mentioned, is their experience, and we're coming off a great school year, and we hope to enter into another great one as well.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is district reports. Are there any items that should be pulled out for separate discussion? So we'll move on to the consent agenda. So the consent agenda, do we have any, are there any items that should be pulled out for separate consideration? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
A motion by Mr. Kurth and a second by Ms. Manley to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Hands down. All opposed, raise your right hand. Motion passes. On to our regular agenda. First item on the agenda is a presentation of nutrition services funding and the related student learning opportunities.
So Patrick, I'll ask you and the others to please go up to the podium. So the board has asked us to bring this presentation forth, and you heard Bill talk about the budget concerns, and certainly those are things that we all share in that concern. And then you look around the corner and you wonder, why is it that we've built a several $100,000 satellite kitchen here at New Berlin West, despite our budget issues? That's what we're here to talk about. Because despite that, there are reasons why we were put into a position to not only build it, but more importantly, what it will be able to do on behalf of our students. So I'll hand it over to Patrick, and then Kelly can introduce our other guest as well when she comes up.
Okay, the first question, and I'm going to talk as little as possible. What is Fund 50? Sorry for the small print. Fund 50 essentially is the fund in which all revenues and expenditures related to the district's student food service, student nutrition, and if the district did also participate in an elderly nutrition program, that's where those activities would be recorded. Revenues come from local sources, which would be student and adult payments, a la carte, catering, just your typical local revenues. Government funds, we also get state and federal funding that goes into this fund. The account, and this is just some housekeeping, the account may carry a positive fund balance, and you may ask yourself, is there such a thing as a negative fund balance? And in government accounting, there is such a thing as a negative fund balance. However, this is one of those funds where you're not allowed to carry that. If you have a negative fund balance that is because of the student portion of the nutrition program, that must be made whole out of the general fund. If you have a negative fund balance at the end of the fiscal year and it's because of an elderly nutrition program, that must be made whole out of the community service fund, because elderly nutrition is considered a community outreach. Expenditures, and this is probably the most important thing that applies to what we're doing here at West, expenditures must be directly related to the production and or distribution of food throughout the district nutrition programs or related services. What we're doing here at West is a satellite, essentially a satellite kitchen. Its primary purpose is to serve the district food service as an alternate site for the production and distribution of student food. Okay? What we're allowed to do within that program is invite some curricular connections that will help us run that. And essentially what we're doing is we're using our food service program to, as my partners here will tell you, to instruct students.
Patrick, just a couple quick questions off of that. Fund 50, does this impact our structural deficit? Can we use these funds for the, and I know you mentioned what they specifically can be used for, but can they be used to balance our budget? So can I take money from the food service and buy curriculum resources? Can I take that and hire an extra teacher? Can I take those dollars and do other things with it? What are our limitations?
The limitations are the last bullet point. The expenditures must be directly related to the production and or distribution of food throughout the district nutrition programs or related services. Textbooks are not part of the nutrition program. Teachers are not part of the nutrition program. Essentially, expenses that come out of the general fund are not to be funded through Fund 50. What we're doing here is not, we're funding a satellite, essentially a satellite kitchen. We're calling it a cafe, but it's essentially a satellite kitchen that is intended to produce and distribute food through the student nutrition program. What we're doing as a educational extension is we're allowing students to participate in running that food service extension, so they will actually learn from the work that we're doing in student nutrition.
So can you speak further about the fund balance in Fund 50? So essentially, they are making more money than the expenses that we're accruing. It's a pretty substantial fund balance, and to the tune of almost $1 million, give or take. What this will do is you're looking at approximately $250,000 to $350,000, and we're still finalizing those amounts. But nonetheless, is there a reason why we're trying to do this? So, for example, having too much in fund balance is sometimes frowned upon. Is that accurate?
It is sometimes frowned upon. In this particular fund, because there are state and federal reimbursements that are involved with it, it's important for us to manage our fund balance, use our fund balance to enhance the program that we have. If we are light in staff, that we bring in the staff that we need in order to put a good product forward. Our fund balance needs to be there in order for us to repair and maintain equipment so that we can maintain the high standards. But because Fund 50 has state and federal support to it, we need to be careful what we have in our fund balance. Other funds are also allowed to have fund balance. For example, our general fund. We're also allowed to carry a fund balance in that as well. And while there are people out there that will tell you you have to be careful of the fund balance that you have there, typically school districts don't start to receive scrutiny by the Department of Public Instruction until they are well over 20 to 25% of their general fund expenditures in fund balance. And so we're far from that, so we don't have to worry about our general fund balance, but our Fund 50 fund balance is one of those that we should be looking for ways to maintain that and expand our programming utilizing that. I should say that we are not raising fund balance in our food service accounts by increasing the cost of student nutrition. There is a simple formula that we do every year through the Department of Public Instruction that indicates if we should be increasing our student lunches or breakfasts, and if we should be increasing them, how much we should be increasing them. The school district, because of its positive fund balance, has not been required to increase its student meal cost, which is admirable, to say the least, and is not the situation that I have been in my last 3 districts. So that is very good for us to manage our fund balance in this fashion.
Thank you, sir.
I'm sorry, Patrick, can I snag you for one last question? So the Fund 50 income comes in from federal, state sources, in addition to families paying for lunch for their kids, right? So I guess my question is, if the fund balance is so high, are we charging too much for lunch?
Again,
I know that there's mechanisms in place and formulas in place to determine whether we need to charge more.
Correct.
But if we're accumulating so much cash, it seems to me that maybe we shouldn't be charging so much for lunch and for milk, or is that not good for some reason?
that's not good. Simply, we've gone for several years now without increasing our charges for lunches or for meals, while those costs have increased.
But yet we still persist having a fund balance that's above.
Correct. And so what we are doing right now is we're managing it. We're not increasing our costs to increase with inflation. We are maintaining our costs while inflation continues to increase to a point in time where our fund balance is such that we may need to have a modest increase in our meal prices. Right now, what we're doing is we're maintaining it. DPI would not suggest that we lower our meal costs, simply that we do not increase our meal costs until such time that our fund balance is starting to be negatively impacted by inflation.
And then earlier, when you said that there's a negative student lunch account, that we have to make that whole through a fund.
Actually, I didn't say anything about a student lunch account.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's what I took it to mean, so.
No.
Okay,
That's if the entire program, Fund 50, has a negative fund balance.
okay, that's a different thing.
Then we have to make it whole through the general fund.
Got it.
And if
Okay.
if we were to have an elderly nutrition program.
Which we
and that
don't.
we do not.
Okay.
But that entire program would be in a negative balance, then it would have to be made whole
Through 80,
through Fund 80.
Okay.
Not individual accounts, this
Got
is
it.
the program as a whole.
got it. Okay, thank you, that helps me.
All right.
All right. In November, we typically come to you, the board, with new course proposals, and we try to align it within our strategic plan. In the past year, we went through a revision within our business and marketing courses. We try to make sure that any changes, whether they're deletions of courses, additions of courses, or just status quo, they're helping students prepare for college and career readiness while we're being fiscally responsible. It's really also important to us that we're aligning opportunities for students to explore within their academic and career planning process. So when we were looking at our business courses, we knew that we wanted to add something with a certificate to it, because that's something we're lacking within our business department, and also add opportunities or change opportunities for students to maintain that career-related coursework. We took this to, I believe, in November or early December, where we wanted to change one of our existing courses, the sales and advertising course, into something a little bit more robust. We knew that this cafe was a real opportunity here at West, so we wanted to leverage that opportunity for students to be able to get career experiences while not even leaving New Berlin West or New Berlin Eisenhower. So we changed that sales and advertising course into a course called Retail Operation and Management. And I do have one of the teachers, Melissa Bonson, here from New Berlin West, who was an integral part of developing this curriculum. We actually hired her because she had this awesome program at a nearby school district, and she wanted to move into the community, and it was a great fit. She didn't want to drive 45 minutes every day, so we got a great teacher and resident out of it. So she's going to talk to you a little bit about the course now.
Good evening. I'll try not to blabber, but I am a teacher, so sometimes if you need to redirect me, please help. But yes, I'm really excited to introduce this class. Kelly jumped right on board with this, and Matt Kern over at Eisenhower, and I have been working on curriculum for a couple months now, really breaking apart how we taught principles of marketing and how we're going to teach retail operations management. And one piece that I forgot, or we didn't mention, was in our field in business, there's two separate licenses. It's often hard to have a business and a marketing teacher. So this course, Retail Operations, is one where both licenses are able to teach it. It's not strictly tied to marketing, so it's we tried to be very broad. So basically what we decided after we broke it down is we'll do a review of marketing. This will be a year-long class, which isn't normal compared to all of our other courses. All other courses are one semester, so it's truly a capstone experience, which we were lacking. We're going to dig into that higher level pieces of business and marketing, where they're going to learn about market research. They're going to do a SWOT analysis of our current food service and in the student experience. It's always fun to, when they go through a survey process or a panel or a focus group or simply observing what's selling, to see like their perspective and how they are viewing it, and it's such a great learning opportunity. This this cafe is kind of like a science lab for the business department. So it's about experiencing it. After that, we're going to dig into the promotion piece, and people often think promotion is just, you know, commercials, which we know that's changed and evolved. So that's where sales really ties into. It's a good quarter of our classes all into the promotion, the selling, but it's always going to tie back to the school store experience for them. They're also going to learn things about like pricing, what's a break-even point, ratio analysis, inventory, things that you can read in a book, but it doesn't make sense till it's applied. Channel management, how it gets here from China or wherever we're getting our things from. The ethics and social responsibility, even consumerism, being an American, being other parts of the world, and tying it into that global marketing piece. And we've talked a lot about some different skills certificates. There's the one through, I'm sorry, the other one with like Spanish Honor Society and yes, hopefully that could tie. Yes, I can't say that. I can't even repeat it. But there's multiple certifications at like the even international levels that we can go for. So it's really a great experience. It's kind of all-encompassing, getting kids who maybe aren't quite as engaged in the traditional classroom environment engaged, all different types of learners in different types of ways. So it's a really unique experience. And I did, at my previous school, I did open a school store. We did grow it. It was really awesome to watch the kids grow, and it became part of the culture of the school. So the kids, not only while they're doing these things, they will be creating the apparel that's sold in the store. I'm not going to. The food service people aren't going to. They're going to be ordering. They're going to be like making errors, you know, because again, that's part of the process. And so we sell less of that this week because we ran out of product. So it's really providing them like kind of the playpen here where they can make mistakes because they have adults around them too through the process. So the last piece is just kind of showing how that will look. So Principles of Marketing is open to 9th through 12th graders. From there, they can take sports and entertainment marketing, or they could go into the retail operations management. I hope they take all of them. But they have to be in retail operations management, the course that I'm teaching, in order to work in the cafe, so the applied retail operations management. And I believe this is a really good depiction of what retail looks like. Before I went into teaching, I wanted to make sure I could do what I teach. So I did work for Target in a $47 million store and got to work in that management piece. And so it's always fun to tie that to that experience and explain to them how Target like needs to check expiration dates on dressings more often or things like that. And so it's an awesome experience for them. And we hope to include a lot of students and just provide a great experience for any student who wants to. Athletes, in teaching some of my other courses, 3 sport athletes, 2 sport athletes don't have time to have an actual job, so they could work before school shift. They could work football games. So we can be very creative even in how we schedule to include all types of people with their hectic schedules too. So that's all I had, unless you guys had any questions for me.
Not so much questions, but this is wonderful.
Yeah.
You know, so much of this relates to what I see every day in the work world, right? And how exciting to get it early and, to your point, make safe mistakes. So very exciting. So when is it actually launching?
When is it launching? Day 1 of school here. So we will be training them. This is a little different for me as far as the food service portion so much. We were more before just packaged and it was truly just students. So this will be unique in the marriage of both because I think it'll bring a different set of challenges and fun, but the engagement, these kids, it's just cool to watch them grow. As a teacher this summer, this was my first year in the district this last year, and I wrote 5 letters of recommendation, and to give real examples in those college letters of what students are doing and how they're doing it, you know, as the general manager of the Common Cafe, this student did this, you know, like generated this much revenue, grew sales, launched a product, you know, some really neat things. So.
Wow, very exciting. So hopefully maybe one of our next meetings when we have it here, we can see it firsthand.
And I'd love to even update you guys at the end of the school year, because it is fun, because we're doing a lot of great things in the district between the Fab Labs and the maker spaces and all this. It's truly that hands-on experience that students want.
Excellent. Well, welcome.
Thank
This
you.
is exciting.
Is this 100% staffed by students, or is this some cafeteria staff as well, or how is that structured?
Great question. So there will be one food service person in there, and then it will be staffed by students. And it will not be open all day at this point, but we're looking at, again, some creative solutions for supervision. It's a great location where there's plenty of adults around, so that's helpful too.
Excellent.
Yeah, I have a question.
How do you quantify it? Yeah, we're not going to do that. Yeah. No, but it's a great experience, and that's why it's kind of at the end of the course, because it's about how companies go global, okay? There's the national, we know there's international, and then there's global businesses and how they operate, how like all the mistakes many companies have made in going global. Have you ever referenced the book Kiss, Bow, or Shake Hands? And just, that's a great resource. And just understanding, like, as a business person, you very well are probably going to travel outside of the country in doing business, depending who you work for. And so how do you handle that? How do you not offend? What do you wear? You know, like McDonald's eventually, they started here, they're all over the place now. That wasn't an accident. There was research, there was market research, there was different ways to promote, there's different avenues to get the products to and from there. So it's really kind of sealing the deal, and again, a great tie to other certificates. And according to our standards through the Department of Public Instruction, global market or global business is really a piece of those certificates too.
So Jeff, we're actually in the process of having me go over to Spain and do some trials for a Commons Cafe over there. I'll be there for about 3 weeks, and then maybe Australia after that, so.
Yep. Great.
I have a question about the applied portion. Is that, it looks like a separate half credit?
Yeah.
And are they doing that while they're taking the class, after the class? How does that work?
Great question. So I got to experience in trial and error in my last school district with that. So now I feel like I have a good pulse on what works. So I've had it where they have to be in the class to work in the store, so that I have that day-to-day contact with them, and I can hold them to standards and follow through and things like that too. And for the other side of the communication, they want to tell me what's going on typically, because I'm teaching and I'm like, hey guys, this is like, I got to go do my real job. And it's good for them too to not have me walking through in a hand-holding process, but again, simply from afar, but within reach. So. And yeah, I think it'd be great to hear even the student experience by the end of the year, so, yeah.
So we hope this answered the call that the board had asked for about Fund 50, and then again, the reciprocal pieces that come with it, you know, back on the learning side of things.
One more quick question.
Yep.
How does the revenue for this tie in? Does this go, I guess probably a question for you, Roger. Sorry, boo. If they lose money, does that come out of Fund 50?
I'll answer the question anyway.
Sorry, Patrick. I'll put my head down as I ask the question. If they lose money, does that come out of Fund 50? If it's profitable, does that go to Fund 50?
Correct.
Do they have their own separate
depends.
fund?
If there's a portion of this that is going to be set aside as a school store, those revenues have to be kept separate from Fund 50, from the food service fund, and so that will be in the general fund, and it will essentially be the allocation that they have for this particular class. Everything that they sell in that store is items that we purchase for resale, and so they're not selling anything that is, how do I say, they're selling things that we would normally have for sale in the school. So we're going to be managing that, and you know, we're not a Fortune 500, so we're not going to be looking at millions of dollars in potential losses or anything like that. We're looking at small items. So within the food service, that is another reason why it's important for us to be able to maintain a fund balance, so that we have the opportunity to have cafes like this where we can experiment with different menu items to see if they will be attractive to our student population and attractive to our teaching staff from the adult meal and a la carte standpoint. So what I'm particularly excited now, I've been managing school lunches for 30 years now. And what I'm especially excited about is our opportunity to have an outlet to try some of those different menu items and appeal not just to the student population, but also to appeal to the adult population that we have working inside the schools. That still falls within the school lunch program, but it's a slightly different demographic that often schools have a difficult time reaching out to.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the first read to revision of policy 5125, student records.
So we are bringing forth an updated version of our student records. Mainly directory data are the changes that we're looking to make. We're not seeking your approval at this time, but we will be seeking your approval at the next meeting. What this has done, so Brandon Costolny, our Director of Technology, has consulted with WASB and other local school districts on determining what is a student record as it relates to directory data. We have been very, very flexible and very all-encompassing unnecessarily as a school district. What that will force us to do, though, is to whittle down what we do pull together for directory data. And so we only basically mine the data that we have to mine, but then that does mean that some of our other supports, like our home and schools, are going to have to gather that directory data differently. So one of the things that we are doing at the open houses is we're asking the home and schools associations to be there to gather that data themselves, so that we as a district are not gathering that data. So certainly we had some issues last school year where directory data was used for purposes that we did not anticipate. So there were folks that were using our directory data information with parent emails and so on to either promote or to oppose the referendum. And those are things that when we anticipated, we wanted to be for providing this information to our home and schools, but sometimes when people do those types of things, that was not the intent of why we would have that directory data. And it's basically you either provide it to all or to none. And so we're ratcheting it down to only having the info that we have to have by law, and then trying to do the other things differently so that our home and schools have the data that they need, but they're going to have to do it themselves, unfortunately. And again, while student records is a really, really long policy, we're really only focusing on the directory data piece.
As you review the policy, if you have any questions between now and the next meeting, please bring those up. Our next item on the agenda is action items from closed session.
Madam President, I move to approve the employment, performance, and compensation matters pertaining to staff as presented.
I have a motion by Mr. Kurth and a second by Ms. Manley. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Hands down. All opposed, raise your right hand. Motion passes. This brings us to future meeting and dates. Board meetings are generally held on the second and fourth Mondays, beginning at 7 p.m. in the New Berlin West Commons, unless otherwise noted, and we will get those dates out when we're going around to the schools. So like Joe mentioned, September 3rd is our first day of school. We will be having a special board meeting on September 4th at 6 p.m., and that will be for the presentation that was going to be presented tonight on the consolidation report. We do have a regular board meeting on September 9th and one again on September 23rd. The Community Budget Task Force has 2 more meetings left. They meet in the New Berlin West Commons on September 10th and September 16th at 6 p.m. We have one more item on closed session. Since we recessed from closed session, we'll be returning to closed session and adjourning from there. So do I need a motion to adjourn at this point? Okay. Okay. All right.